Louisiana lawmakers have set the stage to once again redraw the state's congressional map. The Republican supermajority voted to delay primary elections for U.S. House and Senate races as they await a ruling from the Supreme Court. Here's a look at the potential wide-ranging impact. State lawmakers are back at the Capitol for another special session in anticipation of a Supreme Court ruling dealing with the state's congressional maps. Lawmakers moved with unusual speed, passing two bills designed to delay the state's spring primary elections by a month. Under the new timeline, Louisiana's primaries for U.S. House, Senate, and several municipal offices would take place on May 16th. Candidate qualifying shifts to February 11th through the 13th, with general or runoff elections scheduled for June 27th. But as the legislation advanced, frustration outside the chamber, where Democrats and voting rights advocates rallied, calling the decision a setback for voting access and representation.
Our voice! Our voice!
Republicans defended the change, saying it's about timing, not politics. They argue the state needs flexibility ahead of a pending U.S. Supreme Court ruling that could once again reshape Louisiana's congressional districts.
We have a case before the Supreme Court that's a huge case looking at the Voting Rights Act and whether the particular map that we have, which has two minority districts, might not be constitutional. What they're trying to do is buy themselves as much time as they can so that if the Supreme Court does throw it out, they can redraw the maps and add another Republican district.
Barry Irwin, Chief Policy Officer at Leaders for a Better Louisiana, a nonpartisan organization that tracks policy and voter engagement across the state, says the choices made in this special session could shape the state's next elections.
I think the big thing, number one, is that while we're trying to prepare for a very new election kind of system here in our state, going from open primaries to closed primaries, now we're going to have to say, okay, we're going to push it back another month. It will give people more time to qualify, more time for the legislature to draw maps, more times for a lot of politics if you want to get right down to it. And I think people are going to see a lot of confusion because of that.
Creating confusion and the potential to shift political power across the South and nationwide.
Depending on how they rule on the Voting Rights Act, it could definitely have ripple effects all the way down to the local level.
At Southern University Law Center in Baton Rouge, Professor Angela Allen Bell, an expert in constitutional law, has been following the session closely.
What I saw coming out of the legislature, what I see as a result of the state's efforts with this litigation is to create a system where there will be factions, to create a system where we are not going to be enriched by the diversity of thought that comes about when we actually achieve a democracy that is inclusive. So this cuts to the essence of the way every citizen wants to experience freedom in this country. And what's important about this is making sure that the person who's chosen to be in Congress can first and foremost identify with the needs of the constituents back home.
Law professor Allen Bell also says the outcome of the Supreme Court's decision could have national implications.
This case talks to us about what redistricting is going to mean around the whole country. It talks about race, the way race can play or factor into redistricting. It talks to us about the way politics and political parties can become a part of this redistricting conversation. This case also will decide that. This case also will ask us, do we really want a Voting Rights Act anymore in this country?
While Republicans call it a sensible move and Democrats say it's an overreach, one thing is certain, the election calendar has changed. And as Louisiana waits for the Supreme Court's decision, the political landscape continues to shift beneath it.
This decision has the potential to result in what I term political apartheid, not just in Louisiana, but around the entire nation. That's how high the stakes are at this moment.
In a year when every day and every vote counts, Louisiana's special session has once again put time at the center of its democracy. The fight over redistricting in Louisiana dates back several years. Advocates initially pushed for a second majority-minority district in 2022 when census data showed that Black people made up about 33% of the state's population. I spoke with the lead plaintiff in that case to talk about how we got here. Joining me now is Press Robinson. You led the case challenging Louisiana's congressional map. That fight is now before the Supreme Court. Take me back. How did we get here?
This process started years ago, quite frankly, and minorities have been fighting constantly to make sure that they have their rights protected. In 2022, after the legislature passed their map for the congressional district with the one majority Black district, we filed suit because the 2020 census showed that the minority population of the state is about 1/3. Well, 1/3 of 6 congressional districts is 2 in anybody's math, okay? But we only had 1. So we filed suit to get that second one. I'm the lead plaintiff in that suit. It's entitled Robinson versus Landry, because Landry was our Secretary of State at the time. We took it to the federal court. Judge Shirley Dick ruled that the map likely violated Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The Fifth Circuit agreed with that twice. And from that, there were a group of voters in Monroe. They called themselves non-African American voters. I don't know who they are, but they filed suit claiming that map that the legislature and the governor and all approved and was, signed into law was not politically drawn as the state was contending, but actually racially drawn. We initially argued the case before the Supreme Court last year, expected to have an answer at the end of the term. Didn't happen. Instead, they rescheduled it for rehearing this past October 15th. We argued it. This time, however, instead of the state being on our side and arguing the same thing, they're in opposition.
It was flipped.
Unfortunately, the Louisiana legislature is currently in special session. They say to alter the election dates from April to May. That's what it's about, but that's not the real reason that they're doing it. They're really doing it because they're thinking that the Supreme Court may very well say that Section 2 is no longer applicable and that maybe the map does violate the 14th and 15th Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's talk about the voters. What's at stake for them, specifically in Black and rural communities?
In Black and rural communities, if we don't have Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, the Supreme Court several years ago got rid of Section 5, which dealt with pre-clearance. So we only have Section 2 to protect our voting rights. I see that we won't have an opportunity to express our choice for representatives at any level of the electoral process. Whatever happens in this particular case will set the stage for what happens throughout this country. And that will set us back 50, maybe 100 years in the process.
What's going through your mind as you say that statement right there?
Horror. We thought that we won this battle in 1965 or the 60s and 70s, only now to be reliving the whole thing all over again.
Takes a toll.
It takes a toll. And the more things change, the more it stays the same.
Whether it's a win or a loss, depending on what the Supreme Court rules, what is your message to people in Louisiana?
We got to keep fighting. If they vote against us, we'll have to find another way to attack the issue. We deserve, that's a fundamental birthright of a citizen in a democracy. So how can you deny us our opportunity to do it? Yet the people in power seemingly have no trouble whatsoever in denying us our basic and fundamental rights.
Is there anything else you want to add on the subject that I haven't asked?
Only to emphasize again, this is extremely important. And it's very important for minority voters to understand so that they get out and vote. Voting is important every single time. And it doesn't matter at what level that vote is, you ought to get out and vote. And to realize that this is going to set the stage for not only Louisiana, but the entire country, and not only at the level of the congressional, but at the judges' levels, the state legislature, school boards, all levels of the electoral process are going to be affected. History repeats itself.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, thank you. That's Press Robinson, everyone.